Hello and welcome to the CT Sports Report. My name is Cody T. Partner in crime, as always, Chris.
Mr. Teague, I am doing well as always, my friend. Unfortunately, I cannot hear or see you now that we pressed the live button, but I think we're good now. No, there we are. We're fantastic. So now that that's better, I'm better, and we can get down with the show, my friend. How you doing, bud?
I'm doing good. I do thank you for joining us on the special Monday edition, the day after Valentine's Day, where we had the NBA All-Star Game, the first week of NASCAR, and just a few other things that Chris and I touch on. I'm not gonna lie, the sport I know the most is over with, and I'm still in a little hangover state from that, trying to pick myself up from it. I miss football.
We get into my wheelhouse a little bit more as we get closer to March Madness and NBA, which I used to absolutely hate, but I'm starting to be entertained again, especially with this All-Star weekend. But let's remind the folks how they can keep up with us before we get into it.
Absolutely. Remember, you can follow us at the CT underscore. We're getting close. CT underscore sports report at the Twitter. Also, you can search us on Facebook and absolutely Google Plus now. CT underscores. It's actually the CT sports for the first name. Second name is report. Find us on there. Absolutely connect with us, and you can follow us at the Google Hangout whenever we decide to produce live. And if we ever have any live shows where you can join in instead of people actually trolling on us, absolutely we'll be able to do that. So just remember, follow us at the CT underscore sports report on Twitter. We've been a little more active, and me and Chris have been really active in terms of making new videos on the YouTube here using Google Hangouts.
Absolutely. Yeah, man, we've been having a good time, a lot more accessible. Nobody has to travel as much now, so getting out some regular shows. I think we're having a few views on there. I checked the viewage today, and we got a few views on each video, so we just got to keep sharing those and getting the word out a little bit better. But I'm having fun. I hope you are, and we'll just keep knocking them out.
Absolutely. Well, we'll just dive right into it, Chris. The thing that you were watching this weekend, unfortunately, I was not, because, hey, I cut the cord and do not have cable, but plenty of highlights that I was able to see. The NBA All-Star Game, hashtag no defense, as always, but that's come to be expected. You even have a little highlight from the two main things in terms of the three-point contest and the dunk contest, which was, I guess you could say, could have went a different way. But absolutely, Chris.
Yeah.
It depends. I mean, if you like people jumping from the half-court line and giving you that nostalgia of Jordan, it's going to happen. But go ahead, Chris. Go ahead, and I guess you can start off with anything you'd want to. I'd say we saved the game for last, and so go ahead and lead the way, man.
All right, let's do it. NBA All-Star Weekend was in Canada for the first time ever this past weekend in Toronto. We won't mention Nelly Furtado's "Oh Canada" display. Not so good from what I hear. I was unable to catch it, fortunately, I will say.
I would just say this. Don't look it up. Don't look it up. It's the worst thing. It's the worst thing ever. Just don't look it up. The dude playing the flute beside her, I left that part out before the show, Chris. It was some dude playing a wood flute beside her. It should have just been him. Or Justin Bieber. I don't even know.
Okay. Oh, God. He is Canadian, isn't he? Anyways, to start off with All-Star Saturday night, this event, until last year, kind of was beginning to lose its luster. And almost like the Pro Bowl in the NFL was thought to be, should we scrap it, or is it a big enough draw on television and for celebrities? But this year, the stars came out to play, literally and figuratively. The celebrity game was fun. The Rising Stars game was fun. You got to see a lot of the young talent. But going to the All-Star Saturday night, you started off with the skills challenge. Now, they did switch up the format for this year. They added a big men bracket. So you had like your 4s and 5s going against each other. And then in the opposite bracket, you had your point guards and 2 guards in your skills challenge. And you all combined into one. Participants included like Boogie Cousins from the Kings, and your eventual winner, who happens to be a big man, I believe it was Karl Anthony Towns. So he was your skills challenge champion. And that's always going to be the third event per se for that night. But hey, they've put some new wrinkles. They had a new stage set and everything like that. So that was a cool little start off to the night. But your show really started with your 3-point contest, as I'm sure everybody would know. The Splash Brothers. I mean, Steph Curry won it last year, had 27 in a round, was one of the highest scores ever. And this year, his Splash Brother cohort, Klay Thompson, looking for some redemption. But cool fact here, in the first round, good scores all around. We had 3 that were tied for 20, and that was for the last spot in the final round. That's some all-time record shooting by the guys. Those 3 included J.J. Redick, Devin Booker, a rookie from the Suns, and no, my goodness, who am I missing? I'm missing somebody. But Devin Booker ended up winning that 30-second shoot-off to get to the finals to join the Splash Brothers. Now, the rookie put up a good fight. I think he had 18 or 20 in the final round. Then you had Steph Curry with 23 in the final round. Another solid score from Steph. And then you get to Klay Thompson, who looked kind of iffy to start with, and then he got to his money ball rack. 2 points apiece. The last rack, he hit all 5 money balls to beat Steph Curry 27-23. So that's some sharp shooting there. Anything you want to add to the 3-point contest? Because honestly, before this went on, they saw the roster list on the 3-point contest and said, why don't we make this the main event this year and not the dunk contest? I was even hearing that.
I mean, it would make sense because, let's be honest, your dunk contest has not been worth a hill of beans since probably the 90s because no big names want to do it. I say that with a grain of salt, I know, but I'm talking in terms of every single player being a big name.
Right. I got you.
That's where my thing comes in. But I mean, absolutely, it would make sense, but it's not what people are there to see. People expect to see something crazy, and that's only going to happen in the dunk contest. And then I guess my only thing, and I don't know if we've touched on this, Chris, or not, but Steph Curry is talking about this being his final 3-point contest appearance. It would be sad to see just because he's such a prolific shooter. Him and Klay Thompson both are the only reason that people pay admission to go to Saturday before the All-Star game to watch them launch basketballs from behind the arc. I mean, it is absolutely ridiculous. But, in terms of the names that was in the both contests, the dunk and the 3-point, it would make sense why the NBA was like, maybe we should make this the final event. But I guess going back to the actual contest, I mean, I'm happy for both Klay and Steph how they each gave each other their competition and going one-on-one with each other. It was definitely fun to watch. But I guess my favorite thing to watch in terms of the highlights that I had to catch was absolutely the dunk contest.
Yep. And this is just me. It's been awful for about the past 8 to 10 years until last year. You had some bright spots in the early to mid 2000s with the Vince Carters of the world, the Jason Richardsons of the world, those guys that could throw it down. But really, with the exception of that epic battle between Vince and T-Mac, I think it was in 2000, you really haven't seen a head-on-head, one-on-one collision course of fantastic dunkers until this year. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, I had never heard of Aaron Gordon from the Magic. Apparently a bright young player, super athlete, needs to apparently learn a little bit more about the game when it comes to the X's and O's and improve his shot a little bit. But the boy has some hops. My goodness.
Yeah, I mean, him jumping over, and you'll touch on this, but just him sitting on top of the mascot in midair is ridiculous. I wish I could jump half that. I'd have been an NBA player.
I mean, we're both 5'8" standing on a brick, but But 8-foot goals. If they had a dunk competition, I think we would be a full force. But but no, Aaron Gordon brought out some things that nobody had ever seen before, and that is a very, very rare thing. He involved the mascot a couple of different times. One time he had the mascot doing just standing there on a hoverboard, took the ball off the mascot's head, between the legs, dunk. Okay, great. We've never seen that one before. Fantastic.
The timing on that had to be perfect, by the way. The mascot's on a hoverboard.
Exactly.
I'm just surprised it didn't blow up.
Now, Ron Rivera, took those out of the locker room for the Super Bowl.
Hey-o.
Anyways,
that's true.
That might have been what happened. Panthers blew up instead of the hoverboard. But, hey, I'm dissing my own team, man. Leave me alone.
I'm shocked. Go ahead and continue on with the dunk contest, my friend.
All right. So the next time the mascot was used, the mascot was doing a pirouette on the hoverboard. And he's going around in circles. Another exactly perfected time dunk where Mr. Gordon scooped it like this and then brought it back around for the reverse. Another thing that we've never seen. And he was going to mention, and he did, that, oh, by the way, I did that while I was scooping it up. And he had to make sure to tell the judges that to make sure he got his 50. And he did. And the one that he got hosed for is 47, which was in the third round of the dunk-off, by the way. We have a dunk-off, a 3-round dunk-off after the main competition. I don't think we've ever seen that one before where they've been all 50s either. But Aaron Gordon, basically did the full tomahawk, brought it way up here, down below his waist, and then back up there. And that's just very impressive in and among itself. So, I have to act these things out as good as possible. But now he got a 47 with that. And then we'll move to Zach LaVine because, honestly, Andre Drummond, another participant, he's a 6'11" dude that just has power dunks, not all that impressive. And a young player from the Denver Nuggets, forgive me for not knowing his name, but he had a very nice first round and just did not quite make it into the finals. And then you have Zach LaVine. Brought the dunk contest back to life last year. It gave it a buzz. Was it the best show ever with the guys around him? Not really. But he was a one-man wrecking crew last year, and he just did a lot of extremely athletic things, nothing all that flashy, entertainment-wise, but he just quality dunks time after time, hit them on the first attempt time after time, and, had the crowd and the celebs in the first row going crazy all night long. Lots of, like you said, from the foul line type of dunks. He caught an alley-oop with his foot on the foul line. That's new. That's a wrinkle. Never seen anybody catch an alley-oop. Then he did a windmill and then threw the legs, all from about that same area. And then a couple of good athletic dunks, a little closer to the basket, but all in all, 50s across the board for Zach LaVine. And you're back-to-back dunk contest champion.
Absolutely. I mean, it was definitely a fun show to watch, especially when I was watching the highlights. I honestly think the wrong person won because, again, going up, sitting on a chair above the mascot and going underneath the legs, I was shocked. I mean, Leslie was even watching it with me this morning, and her eyes were wide open, and she was in there trying to work this morning because of the snow in North Carolina. But it was just absolutely insane. I'm glad that it's starting to have life, but again, even with these no-name rookies and, anywhere the sophomores and juniors in the NBA, they're not going to bring yes, it's fun to watch. That's understandable. But you got to think of the big names we had moving forward because everyone compares this to Dominique Wilkins and Michael Jordan. That's your ultimate go back in terms of, okay, look at these big names in the dunk contest. No offense, LeBron James is probably one of the most athletic people on a basketball court. He's never going to do the dunk contest. And now, no offense, he's getting a little older, he's not going to be able to do the good.
Oh, he's not going to be anywhere close to winning it at this point. He is. He waited a few years too long to put his name in that hat for sure.
And it's sad. It's sad. It's sad to me. I don't like LeBron James. I'll be the first one to say it. Funny to see is the people like the Dwight Howard, the people like the LeBron James, and for a time being, even though Nate Robinson was not the biggest name, his 5'5" self going and jumping through the gym was ridiculous. Mm-hmm. People were paying money to see that. It's the thing. The name recognition is not out there. The only reason we're going to know Levine is because of the dunk contest. Because I've never heard of him outside of this. Him or Gordon.
Yeah, Aaron. Right. It was Gordon. It was Gordon. Okay. But with that said, Zach LaVine is actually having himself a pretty decent year for the Timberwolves. I think
maybe it's just because
as far as like
Timberwolves.
Okay, touche. Lots of the young Timber puppies over there, not doing so hot, but hey, they're getting better. But with all that said, it was, I think, one of the best dunk contests in the past. Okay, in this millennium, we'll put it that way. How about that? In the last 16 years.
Right. Unfortunately, you are right. That's
and I would say, and wait for it.
It hasn't been good.
Right, and I would say top 5. People are saying some all time as far as like it's the best. You got to go back and actually watch the old ones to be appreciative of how good this was and how good that was back then. I'm going to say top 5 all time. I don't know what order I would put the other ones in, but I'm not going to go as far as others and say it's been the best all time. I really don't think it quite hit that hierarchy.
No, my best performance all time is always going to be Vinsanity when he's wearing that old school Raptors jersey with a red Raptor on the front, the black jersey with the pinstripes on it.
Oh, yeah.
You can't beat that performance to me, but I do respect what they're trying to do. But ultimately, it's not going to be worth anything until 2 things, Chris, and this is something we probably didn't plan to touch on, but it just hit my brain, so I'm going to say it. Until players in college stay in college and become better players and develop themselves as athletes and make a name for themselves before they come into the NBA. Until then, this dunk contest is going to be a wash because all of the older players who should have performed in it, they're past their prime. And until students in college learn how to play the game of basketball before moving up after that one and done rule, the NBA is just going to get worse from here.
Yeah, I mean, the league as a whole obviously will get worse, I think, if they don't change the rule because they're having to send a lot of kids overseas or to the D League. And by golly, we're going to support our Greensboro Swarm.
Absolutely.
But, we just might be season ticket holders if we win the lottery at some point.
I hope so.
Exactly. But that's just where they go. I mean, you look at all the players that came out early last year. Some of them are absolutely tearing up the D League and doing well overseas and whatnot. But and it really starts in high school, the AAU circuit. Until they start teaching fundamentals instead of ISO and go, that's just what the new NBA is going to be. I mean, Steph Curry, fun, small college guy, never really had any offers, but he learned to adapt. He's 6'1", 170 pounds, soaking wet, and can absolutely ball with anybody on that court and bring fans to their feet. He's just a different cat. But that's going to be your new NBA. I mean, it's going to be more finesse. It's not going to be the Pistons of the 80s and 90s. The guys going out there and just beating the living daylights out of each other and playing hardball.
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm going to miss about it. And honestly, college basketball has suffered. No matter how good you think the games are, they're not as good as they used to be because no one knows how to play. Now, I guess I've had this conversation with Leslie because she's the only one that'll listen to me and not answer back, so I always sound right. But it comes down to the fact is athletes nowadays are one-sport athletes. So you're only down to that one sport and you're only developing certain things to where me and you growing up, I was a 3-sport athlete in high school.
Yep.
You were 2, to say the least, I guess you could say. But it helped us develop different attributes for each sport, which carried over to our favorite sport that we wanted to play ultimately in the end. and players don't get that anymore. I hate AAU sports, whether it's travel baseball or AAU basketball or Pop Warner football. I don't like any of it because it's so drilled in your mind to where you cannot become an athlete. You become just a one sport professional in the end, and it's going to kill our future. But before we get off on that tangent, Chris, go ahead and let's talk about the highlight that was the NBA All-Star Game. Again, hashtag no defense, but it was the swan song for Kobe Bryant.
It was. The Black Mamba himself went out and had a fun game. You could tell he was actually extremely loose. The crowd and all the players gave him the much deserved appreciation and applause, whether it be when he was on the court during intros. And then what I like about it is they took him out. Pop took him out to give him a standing O with about a minute left in the fourth. The game had already been put to bed by that point. With that said, I think you have the final score there, don't you?
Absolutely. The West All-Stars almost broke the 200 mark. West All-Stars 196, East 173. Just like I said, no defense, but then again, that's not what the All-Star game is meant to be. I think we can both agree on that. But it was Kobe Bryant's swan song, and then it was just you're out there to showcase and put a show on for the fans, and that's exactly what happened.
It did. I was thinking at halftime that okay, the game's close. I don't think they have that 200 in mind. I had it at the back of my mind, and I'm like, I think they might try to lock it down and actually be professionals. And then a couple minutes into the third quarter, they just said, nah. Too much work.
Hey, Chris, hold on to that thought because after we run through some stats, I want to touch on all-star game scenarios for a lot of the other sports at the end here because
sure.
I think it's safe to say that each all-star game is treated differently. And we'll touch on that real quick, but we'll just go down. I mean, your MVP, Russell Westbrook, which ultimately deserved it. I mean, he always puts on a show. He even came out dancing during the intros. It was fantastic. But he did go, 31 points, 8 rebounds, 5 assists. Definitely the leading scorer, I believe, by at least 7 points on anybody else. The only person who was close to him was Davis. But that's it. I mean, he's out there. He's your point guard. He did exactly what he does with the Thunder. He runs the show. So no question about that. But I will say, at least for the East, I think their leading scorer, Paul George, who by all means deserves it. Mother having a stroke, him ripping apart his leg at some point. Good to see him have a good game. Glad he showed up. But ultimately, like we keep saying, Chris, this was the game for Kobe Bryant.
Yep, it was. And a quick stat on Paul George. With his 41 points, he was only one shy of breaking the record all time for an all-star game to beat Wilt Chamberlain there if he would have scored 42 or more. But, that was just a nice stat for him. And he quietly, I say quietly had that 41 because, like you said, all the attention was on Kobe. Couple fun moments toward the end of the game. Him and Pau Gasol were in the game. And you could hear him tell the guy inbounding the ball, hey, let me post up Pau real quick. And they would go down there. LeBron slapped the floor a couple times against him. Some fun exchanges. And he made a couple of them. But you can definitely tell he's lost a step. But, glad to see him actually having fun because all the stories you hear about Kobe, either now or in the past, is he's a tough teammate to play with. Just in general. I mean, he wants to be the best. Even at this age, he wants to be better than you no matter what it takes.
Absolutely. And it's going back to where we had a little 17-year-old kid who had to have his mom sign his contract for him to play for the LA Lakers to now to where he wants to be the best, where he's on this farewell tour, making sure he plays at least a game in each city just so he knows he respects the game. I don't think that's him being arrogant. That's him respecting the game. But ultimately, in one of his last games, I believe it was in Cleveland, when everyone was like, how's your farewell tour going? He was like, oh, it sucks because we're losing.
Yeah.
That's him. That is Kobe Bryant. The man wants to win. Okay. Yeah. It happens. But I do think it was fantastic to watch, depending on what he really did in terms of what he was accused of, earlier in life, to where just this little scrawny high school kid coming out. He was one of the greatest high school players to come out. Him, KG, and LeBron James. Those are your last three great high school players that we have been allowed to watch, at least for mine and yours lifetime.
Yeah, and I would definitely agree with that, because they were given more attention then, honestly, because they were given the option to come straight up at that point in time rather than the one and done. And now what they're doing these days, sort of sidebarring a little coverage here, is with the high school and college coverage, they're calling them green room guys, with the green room obviously being the waiting room for the NBA draft. And Roy Williams actually went on a tirade against ESPN's coverage of that, saying that, hey, I'm sitting here trying to win college games and you're trying to make my guys, figure out what place they're going to be in the draft. But again, a lot of different things wrong with the system that we don't have time to talk about today, but that'll wrap up the NBA coverage. Like I said, one of the better All-Star Saturday nights that we've had in quite some time, along with a solid game, a high-scoring game on Sunday evening with the game itself.
Absolutely. And then let's go to the point where I just want to touch on you again. This is kind of unscripted between me and Chris here in terms of what we're trying to do for the CT Sports Report. But we're talking about all the different all-star games, Chris, in terms of our four major sports that we have in America. We have MLB, NFL, NBA, and we'll throw in NHL for this matter in terms of how fun it is to watch a game. Now, the NHL did a great thing in terms of taking each conference and doing a 3-on-3 tournament, which turns out to be fantastic. It was fun to watch.
Exactly. It made me tune in for a little bit, and then obviously I saw the rest of it on highlights, but the concept itself is new. It's fresh, and as you like to say, fun to watch.
Exactly. That's the thing. And then the NBA game, no matter how much we hate how there's no defense played, that's not the point. The point is to showcase the athleticism of some of the greatest players in the NBA, so automatically it's fun to watch. And then the MLB, now I don't like how playing for something matters at the end. I think that the best team with the best record should have home field advantage, not whoever wins the All-Star game. I don't like that. But again, those are the best players in the MLB out there to play the best game of the year, and I like that. And then it comes down to the NFL, to where some of the best players are playing, but they can't play to their full potential because you're playing defense. You can't lay somebody out, and that's what we all paid money to see in the NFL, is someone to get knocked out. Whether CTE does not matter to the common person. I hate to say it like that. I know that there's a touchy base, especially with things going on. But the NFL is by far the worst all-star game to watch. But I think as fans like me and Chris believe, you're in there for the entertainment factor. NFL being the worst entertainment, NBA, NHL being some of the best entertainment. And I think people need to just think about that. The all-star game does not matter in any sport except for baseball, which I think is stupid.
And it shouldn't matter in baseball. And I was going to get on that one if you didn't. Why make that mean that much?
Exactly. I mean, it makes no sense.
You're automatically giving an advantage using players that won't necessarily be in that game later on as far as the World Series. So, I mean, you're having people that don't really matter trying to sway an outcome. And sure, if your team's in a playoff race, you want to play your hardest in that game. But if you're at the bottom of the barrel, you don't really care. You're just there for the experience.
Absolutely. I mean, it makes no sense to me. But, again, that's something we can talk on almost as much as the NCAA not making the correct rules in terms of someone going to the NBA. I would rather someone be – once you go to college, and we're going to NASCAR after this. I just want to make this point, and I think you'll agree with me.
Don't let people tune out yet. Hold on. Wait.
I know. It's crazy. I'm trying to keep people here, but tell me if you agree. Should the NCAA be exactly like basketball and football, the same, 3 years or until you turn the age of 21 before you can make a decision on whether you're going pro? Because no offense, you're 17, 18 years old. You can grow. You can build muscle. You can learn more about the game from a great coach like a Kasechki or a Williams, or I even say it, Calipari, in terms of developing players the way they should play the game.
All right. I've always thought 2 years would be the best, common denominator. With 2 years, you get them more than one season, obviously. You can plan a team. It helps coaches recruit, because a lot of times you do know when you're recruiting a kid whether they're a one and done or not. But sometimes you have those sort of on the fence guys that have that potential. Hey, if they grow and mature in those first 2 years, then they could get up and leave. So 2 years, I think, helps the kids and also helps the programs in a recruiting process as well.
Absolutely. Recruiting would be the big thing here, but I guess going back and just touching on the local flavor of North Carolina, Michael Jordan, who was not allowed to be a varsity player until his sophomore year and then left his junior year. He wasn't even looked at in high school because he was a scrawny, bad basketball player.
Yep.
I mean, that's the story that at least people in North Carolina should look at, because he came from nothing, because he got cut in high school. He's a small little player in Chapel Hill, but that 1 year to develop with JV to where you can go to the weight room. Mm-hmm. No one knows what a weight room is anymore. I mean, Kennedy Meeks, for at least Carolina, is the one that comes to my mind. He's scrawny because he lost a lot of weight, but for some reason he forgot what a weight room was.
Yeah, he skips leg day.
He skips leg day more than anybody I've heard. But that's my thing. A lot of these players are small. That's why I like to watch these mid-majors who they stay for 4 years. They build that muscle. They back you down in the post, and they learn how to shoot the basketball and play with X's and O's. That's why a lot of these players you never heard of end up being something in the NBA because, hey, they know how to play the game. If you're playing for Craig Popovich, let's look at Kawhi Leonard, who not a lot of people, let's be honest, we knew about him coming out of college, but he wasn't one of the most talented people coming out of his group. And now he's one of the best players because he has a great coach. He came from one of the schools that taught him X's and O's, and he stayed all 4 years.
Yep.
I mean, it's just like going to school. You have to learn how to play the game before you come in here and make the professional sport of basketball look like crap, like it's going to once a lot of these big-name players finally call it quits.
Yep. It's definitely a shift in eras right now. Where you see the KGs, the Kobe's, and everybody like that hanging up the sneakers and putting the ball and going home, in a sense of the word. But, it's definitely going to be interesting to see in the next couple years whether that Warrior style of basketball right now takes off the small ball with, basically 4 guards and a power forward. And you've seen a little bit of that transition, even with the Spurs having to adapt a little bit, because that's something new. And if you're making the Spurs adapt, then, you're doing something. So we'll see if the other teams follow suit, but we'll see what stylistically type of game we see in the next few years.
Absolutely. And I think Chris and I can both agree that even though we're young and we're part of this millennial generation who wants everything to be spoon-fed to us, me and Chris agree that the old style is better than the new style. Chris, do you agree with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up watching WGN on satellite television because that's a Chicago station. I grew up watching Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Tony Kukoc, those guys playing the old way, just playing the best that they can, a combination of physicality and skill. Rather than just displaying all these fancy frou-frou things that we kind of are seeing right now.
Absolutely. And then not that me and Chris are ever going to get big, but I'll say it. If you are someone who's cut the cord and you have regular television, tune into the American Sports Network, because that is where all your mid-majors play in the SoCon, the A10, the Big Sky, you name it, all these competitions you never get to see, they're on there. And it's kids who actually want to play the game. They're just not in it for a paycheck to help mommy and daddy. So that being said, Chris, shall we move on before I start making people upset if they watch this show?
dropping the mic on them right there.
Hey, I'm telling them how it is, and I think you know it's the truth. This is a hot take. This is a hot take, right?
That was a hot take. That was a hot take.
I mean what I say, man. It's just people don't love the game; they love the money now. Hey, what can you do?
Yeah. All right. NASCAR. Since we are a Southern-based podcast, by golly.
Turn left, baby. Turn left.
Oh, look, they're doing another left turn. I'm just kidding. My dad brought me up watching NASCAR, so I'll still be a casual viewer the rest of my life, I'm sure. Speaking of generational changes, NASCAR is going through one right now with one Mr. Chase Elliott.
Absolutely. Chase Elliott now in the 24 car that was previously drove by none other than the new Fox broadcaster, Jeff Gordon, who has done a phenomenal job so far, just because he's one of those new faces who understands how everything works in the car now, except for DW and Dale Jarrett, who knew how it worked 35 years ago. But that's the point. Chase Elliott, the son of Awesome Bill from Dawsonville.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, he absolutely – and Jeff Gordon called it to where he was going to win the poll. Now, I don't know if that was Gordon being biased, but he was exactly right, and this is exactly what they went out there to do. And I love the new qualifying format to where one and done. They didn't do the group qualifying before because that led to a lot of wrecks. So it was a one and done as soon as you got up to speed. Yeah, I mean, run what you brung. It was fantastic. And Chase Elliott just happened to be on top, and he ran a great lap. I mean, he only got the pole over Junior, his teammate, which Gordon also called. Just saying, Rick Hendricks, they look fantastic as they always do at Daytona. But we have two Chevys starting up front. There'll be Chase Elliott and Dale Earnhardt, and then of course the rest of the field will be set by the duels that are coming up later in the week. But absolutely, it was fun to see. You're exactly right. This generation change. We have Gordon leaving. Stewart, he's leaving at the end of the year. Junior's getting older. He's going to have to retire soon, no matter what anyone says, even though he's trying to at least build some footsteps in his father's legacy. 3 for Dale. But it is this generational change to where a lot of the people that you and I saw growing up, except for Bobby Labonte, who for some reason is still racing, it's all shifting over to the
hold on. Fun fact. Fun fact. Mr. Bobby Labonte, actually former member, just resigned, of the Old North Club.
Oh, my God. Oh, my goodness. Okay, anyway. But we'll move on before you get on your soapbox. But, again, we have the Chase Elliott's. We have the Austin Dillons. We have, Reagan Smith, who I believe is going to be a decent driver as soon as he gets on a decent team who knows how to build a car. And just a few of your drivers to name that I believe are some, and even Ricky Stenhouse Jr., who I mean, he dated Danica, but we won't hold that against him.
No.
Who is going to be a good driver. It's just everyone's having to move up. The generation that we all grew up watching, face it. I know NASCAR is not considered a sport to a lot, but when you watch that 1 year to where I want to say it was Greg Biffle who did a before and after, and I could be wrong on the name, but nonetheless, a before and after of the race to where they lost 18 pounds just from driving the race. That I mean, it happens that way. But it's going to be a great season for NASCAR, seeing the changing of the guard. I mean, and just hearing Gordon on Fox is going to be great because he brings an updated perspective of what's actually going on behind the scenes. Chris, I think I'm more of a NASCAR fan than you, but is there anything that you are excited about in terms of the upcoming season that's happened?
Honestly, yeah, because the past 2 seasons you've seen son of my favorite driver, like you said, Mr. Dale Earnhardt. You have Junior out there that's got a top 10 finish, in the championship for the past 2 seasons. Can he make that next step as he begins to age just slightly? I mean, he's still got a few good years left in him, I believe. Honestly, might just now be hitting his stride. What is he, in mid to late 30s now? But
yeah, he's getting up there, but it's still, he has that name that everyone has to go with. But as much as I don't like the Earnhardt name, even though I have the 3 for Dale here after I learned more about what Earnhardt was really about, and even though Junior probably drinks as much as I do, it goes to the point to where he still knows how to drive a car, and he has a good team and teammates like Jimmy Johnson with Hendricks behind the wheel, who's going to provide him the best possible scenario to go out there and possibly win one before he finally retires.
Yep, and one minor correction I just wanted to double check on you is Matt Kenseth is actually going to start with Chase Elliott on the front row there. Matt Kenseth, Junior did finish high up, I believe, in the qualifying, but I think he is going to have to be in the duels to find his spot in the 500.
I think you're exactly right, and that was my fault. I think I was reading something else on the phone. So you're right. Thank you for that correction. But that being said, we still have Chase Elliott in the 24 at the beginning, and then just a couple of the big stories that we have, at least from my perspective, my favorite driver and owner, Stewart Haas Racing, two of their drivers, both of their qualification times were disallowed because the track bar did not meet NASCAR's qualifications. So we have Kevin Harvick and Brian Vickers, who was taking over for the injured Tony Stewart, who is an idiot and who decided to go wreck an ATV before the season started.
And I believe he is actually now officially out for the entire season, not just the first couple races, if my sources are correct on that one.
Not confirmed.
Not confirmed?
Not confirmed.
Okay.
Not confirmed.
Give
me hope, Chris.
I was about to say, you're holding out hope there. That's your hot take. Either way, he's not going to have any points.
It is not confirmed. I can't say that. It's not confirmed. I can say that because he did post a video of him rehabbing on a treadmill a few days ago. So that is the thing. And then also, I guess, going to the Sprint Unlimited race, we did have Denny Hamlin, who won his third all-time Daytona Unlimited race, which was fantastic. 25 cars, I believe it was. Only two ended up without damage, and one of those was not Denny Hamlin. He almost lost the right side of his car, which, if you go back and watch the tape, was plastered in duct tape to where they were holding it down, and he just ran a phenomenal race. It was definitely fun to watch. Definitely a fun way to start off the NASCAR season. Chris, did you get a chance to watch the Sprint Unlimited? Because if you didn't, you missed a fun night.
Yeah, I actually did not get to watch the race itself. I did catch some of the Twitter likes, and especially with the big wreck that Junior was involved in. I think it might have been the wreck you were just talking about, where it was either him or Brian Vickers.
It was Brian Vickers, you're right.
Had a very bad wreck and stayed in the infield care center. It's a good NASCAR term for you, ladies and gentlemen. The infield care center for a little while. It was kind of scary. They had to assist him a little bit, but otherwise in good shape, in good spirits right now, from what I've been told.
Absolutely. And then just moving forward, before we leave the topic of NASCAR, the last time that someone won the Sprint Unlimited race and then won the Daytona 500, actually Dale Jarrett in the year of 2000. So it has been 16 years since that's happened. And, of course, old Dale Jarrett, who hopefully, no offense, we don't hear a lot from in terms of television anymore. But he was the last one to do it, and he was a great Daytona 500 racer. But that being said, it looks like one of these young guns are going to be in top contention. Chase Elliott, probably your favorite. He could be one of the first. I think there's only been 2 or 3 maybe who went wire to wire, and I think he has a very good shot of doing that.
Yeah, definitely. If he definitely has a good learning tree to pick up some things under his famous father, obviously. So, with that said, I think the 500 coming up. Is it not? It's not. Is it this weekend or the next?
It is this Sunday.
Okay.
It is this Sunday, the Daytona 500. Unfortunately, like a few years ago, we would not have Juan Pablo Montoya there to blow everything up. He has since left NASCAR. Praise the NASCAR gods that happened. But absolutely, it is going to be a fun weekend. We have a lot to look forward to. If Stewart doesn't get back in the car, then he's done. But, of course, that means that my trip to Martinsville is canceled because that's the only reason I was going.
And so I was about to say, we have some local tracks and, within the 3-hour radius of our home in the Piedmont Triad. So it's definitely accessible. We might have a special CT Sports Report NASCAR correspondent later on in the season. Just be on the lookout for that. Maybe some cool video, maybe get a special call in or something as we keep going along. We'll keep that secret until we drop it. But
absolutely, one day Chris and I are going to have guests, whether it's someone you know or someone you've never heard of. One day it's going to happen. But look forward to NASCAR until baseball starts, because that's when I start to get my second groove away from football. But moving forward, Chris, I believe it is that time of the year to where two schools not too far apart, two different shades of blue, they come in and they decide to play the sport of basketball. Now, I know football is a fun sport. They battle each other in soccer, but none of that's televised on every single sports platform like the sport of basketball, Duke and Carolina.
Exactly. And to you people listening in South Carolina, go ahead and tune out, because there is only one Carolina. I
can't disagree with that. We're the greatest.
We've had friends in the past that would differ. So with that said, Wednesday night, 9 p.m., the typical first slot of the North Carolina Duke game, this one being held at the Dean Dome. Duke coming in slightly hobbled, but on a winning streak, actually. And Carolina having a dominant win over Pittsburgh on Sunday afternoon. Just some high spots for the Tar Heels. The player that I think has outshine the rest, and you think I'm going to say Marcus Page, and it's definitely not. It's Bryce Johnson. Field goal percentage is leading the ACC with 61.4%. Field goal, not free throw, and he's improved his free throw shooting from in the 50s early in his career to 77.5 this year. So have absolutely become a well-rounded player, averaging 16 points and 10 boards a game. Also likes to throw in an assist or a block every once in a while. But then again, you have the head honcho of the team being Marcus Page. Minutes are still high, but production is down this year. He had an injury earlier in the year, but still averaging 13 points, couple rebounds, and about 4 assists per game. And one guy who I think could be an X factor for Carolina in this game is Joel Berry. He's came out of his shell in his sophomore year, averaging 12 points and 4 assists, and has become a very good secondary perimeter option for Carolina that they have not had in the past couple years. Obviously, you have your bigs down low with Kennedy Meeks and Isaiah Hicks, who has been a tremendously improved player this year. Also near averaging close to a double-double, Hicks is. So with 10 points and I think about 6 or 7 boards. So a lot of things to look forward to. You're not going to get the atmosphere, we'll call it, at the Dean Dome, which has habitually been called the wine and cheese crowd.
That's exactly right. It's what it's going to be.
And they still are to an extent. But I have seen some things to help improve it, whether it be improved promotions in-game, whether, giving them a towel or a T-shirt or something, whereas usually you'll see people come in their cardigans and, just chill out, basically, and enjoy their wine and cheese. But this year I'm hoping for a good atmosphere. It doesn't matter if Duke is limping in or doing well. Duke is going to play a good game in Chapel Hill. If you look back in the olden days, I think it was 2001, Carolina was 8-20 under Matt Doherty that year. Oh, boy. I don't want to forget those years. But they always played Duke well when Duke was, a fairly highly ranked team. So I think it's going to be a battle. It's never going to be a blowout, and it's always a huge surprise if it is more than about a 10-point lead for one team or the other.
Absolutely. So this going into this game, Carolina is 2 out of their last 4 in terms of their wins. Duke is on a 4-game winning streak. Just running down the Duke schedule real quick in terms of their last 4 games. I will say they have beat Georgia Tech, should have won that game. NC State, which unfortunately is very streaky, saying that they were supposed to be very good this year. And then, of course, beating the team that Carolina lost to, Louisville, and then Virginia, who came in ranked number 7 with Duke unranked, with the Grayson Allen Fada, which might have been a travel. No one knows.
Don't say might have been. It definitely was.
I'm not going to touch on that, considering you are a Carolina friend, my friend. But, of course, 4-game winning streak, last 2 games against very tough competition. No matter where Louisville is ranked, Louisville is always a tough team. We'll go over to the Carolina games in terms of them. It's not been that great of a last few games. But, of course, they did lose to Louisville, Notre Dame, both games on the road, of course.
Yep.
Very Boston College, only 68-65. Yes, I realize that was a home game for Boston College. Again, should have been more of a game.
Let's not talk about that game. I was actually sweating during that game. Boston College was flexing on us for some reason, like literally flexing their muscles, and then they ended up losing. But, with that said, Boston College is going to remain at the basement of the ACC, but it never should have been that close.
Absolutely. And then, of course, they routed Pitt at home on Valentine's Day. So very good game from them there, to where all the players decided to show up. But, again, they still didn't get that large lead until the end of the game. And Marcus Page, even though he is starting to show signs of what he used to be in previous years, he's still not that dominant player that I believe Roy and Carolina fans want him to be. The best player on the team for me is Bryce Johnson. And unfortunately, I think second behind him, and you might not agree with me, but it's Justin Jackson, because those are the only 2 players who seem to be touching the ball majority amount of the times in terms of scoring baskets.
Here lately, I will definitely agree with you. Justin Jackson was in some sort of slump for most of the ACC season, but the last, I think, 3 games, his field goal percentage is up. He's taking more shots, not nearly as tentative, and has probably the prettiest floater in the game.
Absolutely. And then going into some of the stats and where you can watch this game, at least for your local people, ESPN will have the main coverage, and they will also have special coverage in terms of above the rim and stuff like that. And then also for locally in North Carolina, this will be one of those Channel 2 CBS games that you can catch. But just going into it, Duke does have a record 19-6, Carolina 21-4. Duke, their away record this year 4-2. Carolina's home record 13-0 this year. And I guess going into my prediction before we wrap up the show, Duke does go in and win this game, because Duke always wins at Carolina. Chris, what do you think?
I wish, I could disagree. I wish I could agree, because that might be exactly what happens. But Grayson Allen is going to be the next white guy from Duke that we all hate, being from Carolina. You had J.J. Redick. You had John Shire. You had all those guys, Wojciechowski. Grayson Allen is going to be the list goes on. But Grayson Allen, I think, may end up cementing himself as that guy. But for prediction's sake, I've got Carolina in a mediocre scoring affair. We'll say 73-69 Carolina. I put the 69 in there just for you.
Absolutely. As you know, that is one of those numbers I like. But I will say it will be a fun game to watch. It always is. And, of course, next week, even though we know Duke and Carolina will both have a game, me and Chris will be tuning in with you to talk about that game and the game after, depending on how they go, just to get you caught up with the 2 Carolina teams that matter. Sorry, NC State and Wake Forest, you're kind of out of it this year. That at least matter in North Carolina.
Yep, and if all is available for me, I will be live tweeting that one at CT_Sports Report for the Duke Carolina game, 9 p.m. on Wednesday.
Absolutely. So remember to tune in and follow us on CT_Sports Report. Chris, I got to say, for an unscripted show, I believe we covered everything that was important to us.
Yep.
I think we did great. I mean, Monday's show, we're snowed in. Neither one of us had to work.
You're snowed in. I haven't seen the first snowflake. It's all freezing rain here, so it's just yucky. Never got to see the first snowflake. I was very upset when I woke up this morning. But again, work got canceled for myself. Our beautiful wives and fiancés had to go in today, but that gave us a little more freedom to pull off the Monday show. Go ahead and get something on the airwaves for you guys, and we'll see you again next week.
Absolutely. Remember, Score Sports Report, and then follow us CT Sports, second name Report on Google+, and find us on Facebook, CT Sports Report, and follow us in every single way you can. We'll be plastering this video everywhere as we always do. And once again, my name is Cody Teague, and he is...
I am Chris Calicut.
And we'd like to thank you for joining in to the CT Sports Report, and have a great rest of the week, America. We look forward to seeing you soon.
Have a good one, guys.